everyone, welcome to MMO Grind. I'm Malice, my co-host Puka, and we are here with our guest, Matt Fleming, who is currently a developer of an upcoming MMO, Warhammer Odyssey. We'll be discussing a little bit about his career, his opinions of the MMO space, and whatever else he wants to discuss today. So, everybody say hi to Matt.
Say good morning.
All right.
This man got up early for y'all.
So everyone knows the sad state of affairs. Matt here is in Thailand, so he just woke up. It's the crack of dawn there, so be a little forgiving.
It is 6 a.m. for me, so be prepared for me to be a little more off the cuff than usual. I will be using gratuitous profanity. I mean, I will do that anyway because the game industry, but it will flow a little more freely because it is ass of goddamn dawn. And I don't even know if... Okay, the sun is beginning to peek up outside as we speak.
Bless you. Bless you with his morning presence.
Yes. These are the things I do for you, Malice. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, Malice and I go way back. We worked together at Mythic Entertainment. That was where I got my start, and it's been a long, strange journey to get to here, but he was there at the beginning.
Yep, started back. What was that? Did you start in 06 or 07?
I think I started in 07. That was back when both of us didn't have gray in our beards.
Yep. Yeah, because I think I started August 06, and you came in soon after that. So you probably came in right after, like, January, February, something like that.
Yeah, I have to fire up LinkedIn to take a look at that. But yeah. God, thank goodness for LinkedIn, because I would have forgotten everything by now. It's my little living resume.
All right. So we started way back then, but it has been a long journey, and you've gone to a lot of different companies since then.
It's been kind of nuts.
You originally worked at when you worked on Mythic. You first worked. We discussed phone service.
Yeah, I was doing phone. I was doing technical and account support for Dark Age of Camelot. So if you ever had to call in to Daok, there was a chance you got me. And if you're one particular person who called in because you decided to name your Minotaur fucking Big Udders and sit there on the phone with me for 6 fucking hours, I hope that you go fuck yourself, because that is the story that I still tell people every goddamn day.
Oh my
Phone
God.
support cannot help you with your naming issues. And also, you're like a 30-some-odd-year-old man at the time. And really, dude, fucking really.
About how large was y'all's support team there? Like
at the time we were only like 4. At the time, the biggest we had was like, I believe, 4.
Okay.
Because it was me, it was the lady, and then we had 2 other guys. One guy ended up moving off.
Y'all seem to communicate a lot. Me, the lady. And some other guys.
Well, I'm trying not to use names here because I don't know if they want to get called out.
Yeah, because some of these people are still in the industry, so
sure.
Yeah. She went on to work on. I think she's working at ESO right now.
Right on.
As a game designer, and yeah, so we had that little team of 4 that turned into 3, and that was when Warhammer was starting to launch. And we were told, because that was soon after that, we got bought out by Electronic Arts, and they were talking. They were talking about moving the phone support stuff over to Austin, with all the other Electronic Arts support. But they're like, okay, we can't do that yet. And the worst part was, they had moved over the UO team to there, and we were. So I was talking to them about eventually moving over because I wanted to get into game design. They had me take their design test, and I passed it. I learned their internal coding system and everything, but the phone team wouldn't let me go until they had moved the stuff over to Austin, because they didn't have the people, and they weren't going to backfill anyone. So I had to sit there like that for almost a year.
Good gravy.
waiting for them to. Oh yeah, no, we're totally going to move that over soon. Until fucking the day of Warhammer launch. And that's when my boss at the time said, "You know what? Screw this." Went all the way upstairs, dug out that old ass antiquated phone system, dusted it off, looked up the really old ass manual, and just recorded a new message saying, "Hey, I understand. Yeah, you contacted RTG Camelot support. Our new number can be found at blah 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 blah, the Electronic Arts number," and set it up like that, and then said, "Okay, we're done." And
We're
I'm
done.
like, yeah, so I could fucking go over and work on UO, right? Yes. Okay.
That's awesome.
Which they eventually didn't they move their phone service to Ireland?
I believe they. I think they have a thing in Ireland. I don't know if they moved everyone over or not.
Because I think I actually called Star Wars for Star Wars Republic recently, and I got to sit on a phone with someone with an Irish accent. That was.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised. Ireland. It's kind of sad because Ireland kind of became what Austin was, which was the place for cheap tech labor.
Right.
Which, I mean, maybe, hopefully, that means that they'll start picking up and starting to make their own little game ecosystem there, which will be great.
That'd be good to see some unique cultural lenses on the game industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Oh goodness, yes. That's one of the coolest things. That's part of why I'm excited about being here in Thailand. There isn't much of a game industry here. There's like 3 or 4 like tiny ass studios, but as the lead designer here, one of the things I get to do is I get to grab locals here that unfortunately one of our requirements is you got to speak good English, but I can also take the time and pull out the right people and start, introducing them to how game design really works. And eventually, those people, I mean, the way life goes, people disseminate, things spread around. And hopefully, maybe Thailand will start becoming a bit of a hub for game design, for game companies,
I really think that more areas need to be developing, because at the end of the day, when everything is just U.S. or Korea, and then of course you have Japan, but they're more single player model.
No. Japan has a flourishing ecosystem, but their ecosystem is unlike anywhere else. It's like the rest of the world and then Japan.
Right.
It's really difficult for me, because, I mean, as a game designer, it's my job to go and play everything. My Steam library is embarrassingly large. But you can't get games in Japan, especially on their phones, because they have a terrible tendency to geo-lock. Oh. So if you're not in Japan, you can't play their games. Because this is not available in your country. And it's like, come on, dude, really? I think it's mostly
from an island, bro. Like, open up the gates a little bit.
I know, right?
Back in the day when the Dutch were floating boats at your country, you were like, borders closed, but like, let's move on.
But is that something that the developers have chosen, or is that something that culturally, like, the government is kind of?
I don't think it's a government thing. But I think it's a culture thing. Me talking completely off the cuff, kind of out of my ass, I think it's a middle finger to the Chinese game market. But I mean, and it's kind of a shame, because there are some games over there that I really wanted to play that I would have had to VPN and really get good at Japanese to even consider starting. There's a Fist of the North Star MMO that was released over there. It was apparently shitty, but it was there, and I'm like, dude, that's my favorite anime series. Why the hell can't I play that?
Well, and you know how MMOs go. It could be a shitty game, but there's always a nugget in that game somewhere that's just like, oh my god, that should be replicated in every game moving forward.
They did this one thing.
That would be a fun game for us to play. Pick an MMO, and I can tell you what I think is the good parts of it, and then we can move on.
I do that a lot.
You kind of have to, I mean, the Secret World. The nugget for that one was the way they did their narrative content. Right. Like some of the, especially in the first island, like they nailed that early game to kind of draw you in that first island of like, here's a bunch of clues to do these particular quests so that you can, proceed from there. The combat was iffy. There were a number of things about it that felt kind of jank, but having that murder mystery kind of vibe along with your horror was the thing that sustained me all the way until I got to Egypt, and that's when things started falling apart for me. But when I was in it, I was in it.
Yeah, they did a good job visually and like writing wise, just keeping you in that dark, creepy feel. Everything kind of kept that edge, which I thought is what the only reason why I kept playing that game through. It's like, but I only played in through beta. As soon as it launched, I was like, no.
I started playing at launch, and I played it a good solid less than a year. I think it was right when I got to Egypt and I started doing that stuff. Things started getting to the point where my particular the whole you can pick two weapons and then you can do anything you want with that. That's when that started falling apart for me, and that's when things started getting too difficult, and I realized, well, crap, for me to do what I want to do, I'm going to have to respec a little bit, and that's going to take a bit of a grind. And honestly, I wasn't a fan of the Egypt level, period. It felt weirdly constrictive, and it just I started losing that feeling after that. So
wow, and what it was with games' obsession with the Egypt level, like
you need the weird ass otherworldly desert place level. You gotta have your fucking sewer level. You gotta have your lava level.
Is that something that you like or dislike in games? Basically, or let's say in MMOs, where you're kind of forced to stick with your decisions, and if you want to change them later down the road, it's almost as if you're starting over at point A. You know what I mean? Do you appreciate that, or do you think, in your opinion?
Think it depends on how fun everything else is. Mm-hmm. Having to change your spec is something that we all have to worry about. I mean, God, in Final Fantasy XIV, you've certain builds, especially after an expansion launches, you have to reevaluate everything. And that I can kind of accept, but if you're changing it, having to change it during the mid game to end game for the prime launch, I start having a little bit of a problem. But mostly it depends on if the game is fun. If everything else is cool, and I can still find my fun while I'm accumulating whatever I need to go for this new spec, I'll accept it. I mean, I have terrible altitis. I'm used to starting from the bottom all over again. But I mean, as a game designer, that's also a place where you can find the pain points for that. And I hate to talk evil like this, but hey, you could give us a couple bucks and we can make that passage a hell of a lot easier for you.
Oh yeah,
blasphemy! Blasphemy!
Sorry, guys. Having to talk to someone who has to really think about some of that shit every day. It's not a case of whether or not you're going evil, because I mean we're talking cash money. It's a matter of how evil you're going to go.
Evil.
yeah. And my goal is always to roll right into MMO design philosophy. When I work on games and when I try and when I put my stamp on it, MMOs are supposed to be fun. Your primary goal when you fire up that game and you start playing it is, I'm gonna, this game is fun. This is great. I am enjoying myself. But I could have more fun if I threw them a few bucks. This is, things are already good. Let's go for great now for this particular part of the game that I'm enjoying. Whether it's something as simple as like double XP boost. Okay, I'm able to, it's not pay to win because you're still playing the game. You're just getting there a bit faster. Right. I'm pretty against selling, items that you would be able to find in game. Or
worse, have items that aren't available in game that can only be gotten through the shop.
If it's cosmetic, that's cool.
I don't know if they're cosmetic, that's
Yeah.
great. But I'm saying like actual like what this helps me win in PvP. I have to swipe.
Oh my god! Yeah, did you see some of the shit from the Elder Scrolls mobile game? Where like,
Oh, yeah.
if you play and like you get to like level 6, and then they're like, oh,
That
here's
was
a special thing, only
atrocious.
24 hours. Here's a sword, a fucking golden ass super rare sword that will do triple the damage of anything you'd ever be able to find if you give us $5. And I'm like, dude, and you're announcing that you're putting in PvP?
Yeah.
Okay, congratulations. I have already uninstalled because I know how that game ends.
So, and not necessarily just talking about the mobile market, because I think it's a completely different beast. But where do you stand on the, like, how much time should a person invest or have to invest to catch up with somebody that is potentially paying what equates to roughly 50 cents a day or something to play your title? What advantage is that person getting, generally speaking, from a time standpoint?
That's a really good question. A lot of the design philosophy behind monetization and MMO games of that nature is the whole time is money thing. I think that every person can find their little niche for that, and for things like that, I have no problem with having kind of different tiers. So, like, and maybe it's because I'm just a generous soul, but like being able to every once in a while just hand off, say, hey, here's like a 20% XP boost for a couple hours because we fucking like you. You keep
And that's
logging
something a
into the
free
game.
player would run
That's
into.
great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, having stuff for free players to work on that, and then having, let's say, completely off the cuff and don't read anything into this. Let's say that there's a subscription that says, "Oh man, well, I mean, you can, you give us money. We're normally free to play, but if you give us, X amount a month, $5, $15, whatever the hell the current pricing structure is for things like that." And you know what? You'll get like 50% or double XP or whatever for the duration of your subscription, alongside some other stuff. You're trading in. Some people go to school and they'll sit there and they'll play the game during school, or they'll play the game after school or whatever, and that's cool. And they're going through and they're rolling the dice on their own and they're finding the joy on their own. And then you have other people who happen to work 8 to 10 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, who are enjoying the game but want to be able to maximize the amount of time because they don't have a lot of that. Right. You can trade that in for cash. You're still playing the game, which is the important part. But you're moving through an accelerated pace, which in a way is both good and bad because you're getting more XP, but you are lessening the amount of actual time that you're playing, which means that if you have any other loot, all that loot randomization, you're losing out on loot because you're not playing that same amount of time and getting all of those rolls. So from a design perspective, players are trading in increased XP for less chances of being able to get cool stuff. But on the other hand, if they're going to monetize that much, they might start throwing. They're probably one of the kind of people that would probably throw money at the auction house, in-game money at the auction house, and they're some of the people that try and help churn out the economy on that. There are lots of little things that all kind of come together when you start talking about the player's time.
So do you think y'all are still somewhat trying to target, or let me rephrase this, do you think the $15 a month title is still a good target for a lot of people in your space, a lot of devs in your space?
In the mobile space, I'm going to say no.
No. You have to more or less?
Definitely less. Definitely less. Yeah. The problem, mobile gaming, there are those whales or premier customers or whatever the fuck we're calling people like that this week to make them not feel bad. I mean, some people have the money and they want to get the maximum fun out of the product. And that's cool. I mean, yes, you want to make sure that you have something there for them. And thank goodness the trends are moving less towards let's go find those 5 people that have really deep pockets and make them happy. And you know what? Everyone's got $5.
Right.
Maybe we should get $5 from everyone instead of hoping for 3,000 from like 5 people,
Right.
or whatever. And I'm very happy about that trend because that means I can.
What?
Oh my god.
Well, but it's an interesting conversation though when you say that, like, listen, I am a source of entertainment and I'm providing you, let's say, 20 hours a week of entertainment. Like, you're in my world for 20 hours a week. You gotta ask yourself, what is that worth? And I think a lot of people as gamers really have to step back and ask themselves that question. But at the same time, I think it's important to be critical of the applications and ask themselves, why am I spending that 20 hours there? Is it like an addictive tendency, or is it like, listen, I'm having fun and I'm engaged and this is awesome game design?
That's something that I really love. Yeah, that's something I really love about MMOs as opposed to some of the other mobile games that are out there. There's something, I don't know what the actual technical term is, but if you look at things like Candy Crush or any of those types of games, watch that difficulty curve. Early on, it's nice and slow, and it kind of slopes up, and then suddenly you find a spike to where it's one of those levels that, oh man, oh that sucks, you can't beat it. You're only one move away. Oh, yep. That's fucking terrible. It'd be a shame if you had to grind this level out 30 times until you got that magical combination. If only you had $5.
Yeah.
And at that point, it kind of becomes an extortion racket because you were having fun, and then the game took away your fun.
Right.
And for you, they have found your pain point, and then you have to give them money so that you can go back to having fun. That's just fundamentally wrong to me. Just as a person, it hurts me deep in my soul, in the hurty parts, because that's at that point you're not making a game so much as you're making something that's addictive, and then suddenly they have people that they hire people that are like actual fucking psychologists and mathematicians to figure out exactly at how much time someone has to play something to become addicted, and then they find that point and then start hammering that home to try and get people to give you money. And that's how that everything is kind of designed that way to essentially make people walking ATM machines. Mm-hmm. And I have never been someone that's been comfortable with that. And all the things that I've worked on, I mean, hell, even when I was working at GSN, which is very interesting. I love talking about that one too. It's not about finding your pain point. It's about making sure that you have fun first, and then making sure that the monetization revolves around the fun rather than trying to figure out the way to give you fun until it hurts, and then you're paying to make the hurt go away.
Yeah.
That's what doctors do.
I always view a lot of these games much as like when you stop and realize, you go, oh crap, they're the one playing the game and they're farming me for gold.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying these new trends where you watch a video and get some in-game currency, because that's the simplest way of being able to get gold. You're literally trading your time for some money, and no one gets hurt. You have to watch a stupid ass ad, and over here in Thailand, it's great because I literally don't understand what the hell they're advertising. I'm looking at the pretty pictures, and someone's going, wah, 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 wah. I'm like, cool, okay. I don't know what that is, but sure, dude. I'm going to check it.
And I hope it's tasty.
Yeah. I'm like, that's dude. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. We got a question from one of our viewers, Zaylin. He's actually curious, what is your favorite MMO and why?
Star Wars Galaxies.
And why?
Because it was the iteration, and it's the last one that came from Raph Koster that was designed to be an open world. It was one of the last ones that was designed from the ground up to say, hey guys, here are the rules, here are the functions, But other than that, yeah, no, y'all go to town. You make your story. You make your stuff. It was not a theme park. And honestly, I mean, the fact that it was Star Wars is kind of a double-edged sword. Star Wars means that everyone was going to go and play it.
Or
But
a double-bladed lightsaber.
Yeah. Star Wars meant everyone was going to go play it. But on the other hand, Star Wars meant that everyone was going to go in expecting to be a Jedi. You don't play in other people's IP to go play in Everyman.
Right.
Which was ultimately what I think killed the product, because Sony thought, oh man, it's Star Wars. It should be making millions and millions and millions of dollars forever. When in reality, no, it's Ultima Online in space. We need to, it's going to have that, that much of a market for what it's doing. And the people that popped into there thinking, yeah, I'm going to be a Jedi, and they realize they're not being a Jedi, and they walk the fuck out, then, that's my theory on why it ended up going the way it did. That, and I mean, WoW kind of killed everything.
Well, I think it's interesting to note, too, that actually when they did open Jedi up to everyone, it did more harm than good as well. Because now it's not special. It's like you can't win. I feel like the people that were left over at that point had accepted, like, this is something that's just special and awesome. And then they took that, and you were like, well, now that's what everyone is. There's no one wanted to be anything else.
Yeah.
And then it's balanced and nerfed down to compete with everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That was another problem that game had. As much as I loved it, I truly did. There is still a scope. I get the idea when they're like, oh, we don't really want to create balanced classes. But there is a scope where you still need to be relatively balanced. And they really failed on that a lot of levels. But
yeah, it's really hard to balance a skill-based game like that without making it feel absolutely cookie cutter.
Right.
But when it comes to that, you're kind of focusing more on that kind of game is more skill-based than narrative-based anyway, I hate to say. So that's just where your time should be going.
But that's any sandbox.
Everyone needs to feel cool in their own way, and that's where I think that game both succeeded and failed. I mean, I played a Terrace Kazi dancer. It was another time, okay? But the fact that I could do that is a testament to how good that system was. And I kind of miss games like that. Legends of Aria is trying to do that as much as they can in a fantasy setting, and more power to them. Full disclosure, I worked with a bunch of those guys at UO. And they're doing their thing, and I'm watching as best I can. One of the other big problems about living over here in Thailand is my MMO days are largely behind me unless I'm willing to suffer through 300 plus ping, or I'm playing games in Thai, in which case I have no fucking idea what the hell's going on. More than usual. I tried firing up BDO over here, and I'm like, okay, I remember how to play, but boy, do I not know. I can't figure out what the hell anyone's saying. I even tried to fire up League of Legends over here because I was like, man, I got to get my MOBA on. And no. So for the most part, I can see why most people over here play on their phones, because that seems to be where the market is.
Right.
And everyone over here has a phone. Computers are a little less ubiquitous. So that's why there's a number of MMOs over here. And thankfully, a fair chunk of them have translated their stuff from Thai to horrible, horrible English.
Which at least you can stumble through.
So I can stumble through it, and I can kind of get what they're trying to get at, mostly with what little narrative is there. It's been fun watching how MMOs have evolved in the mobile space, because they're having to get past those cheap, easy wins that they were able to get with that auto run and that kind of stuff. Now people are expecting graphics. Now people are expecting a little bit more
phone
story.
Technology really kicked it up too. So
Oh goodness, yes, yeah.
Gaming phones and stuff.
Games are fucking gorgeous now. Like it absolutely just beautiful things. Like some of the artwork that I'm seeing that one day you'll be able to see, like it's the stuff that I would expect to see on a console, or not on a cutting edge PC. We're not talking Crisis levels, but
Well, what was
being
the
able to.
last one a couple years ago that kind of took the mobile market? Was it a Lineage game that came out on mobile?
Lineage 2 Revolution did come out.
Yeah.
I was not thrilled.
No, really? Well,
Yeah.
but that had a lot of those features that like you don't like in games. And I completely agree. Like the game played itself. And it was like everyone hopped on board for that thing for like 2 weeks, a week, But in that game, it was just on rails. It was terrible. But it did look
It's better over here than it does in the States.
really okay.
A lot of those kind of games, because in the States, more people, in the U.S., Canada, Europe, for the most part, more people have consoles, and more people just have computers. That's the way that game industry works. Whereas over here in Asia, because they put up cell phone towers like mad over here, having those
infrastructure build.
That kind of shit's ubiquitous. People expect do you not have a phone? That's a real thing over here, and that's that was a terrible time to say
You
that.
guys don't have phones,
but it's real, and that's the problem is we can't. When you're designing a game like that, you have to think about the global market. Your game might be embarrassingly bad, like Lineage is in the States. Like it's boring. Hell, what was it? Arena of Valor, the premier 5v5 MOBA game on phones, doesn't do that well in the States. It's just not that popular. Whereas over here, I see people playing it on the subway. Like they're sitting like little girls are sitting. I don't know what their age are because frankly, they're all like 4'0". So I'm assuming everyone's 12. but they're like sitting there. I'm just looking over their shoulder and I'm watching them play, various MOBAs and auto chess and things like that. And it's amazing to see how, everyone here fucking games and everyone's playing games on their phones.
Now, is a lot of that. Do you think a lot of that's just based off not being exposed to what we would traditionally call a higher quality title?
I think it's because computers are just did not get pushed as. I think it's just lack of access, really.
So it truly is. It's like that is a type of playstyle that's conducive to that interface. They have the phone that's all they interface with, and so those are the titles that work.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I'm thinking.
Everybody lives off of the little black screen and all their email and everything else. Moving in that mobile, if they're so connected to their phones, do things like Apple Watch and whatnot seem much more, or that concept much more popular there, or
no? Which is
really
kind of weird. Yeah,
if everyone was attached to that phone, they would all be like,
they're actually extremely popular.
But phones are a lot cheaper over here than they are in the States, which I think might be part of it because computer components more expensive over here.
Right.
Whereas phones, like you can get a decent Samsung phone for $10K to $20K bought, which is $30 to a US dollar now. So you can do the math. That's like around $100. Whereas a phone over in the States, they have a terrible tendency to start you on plans because most of those phones start at $1,000.
Right.
So it's like a couple $100 versus $1,000 for a phone that will, play games like that.
Right. Oh yeah, because if you want to play games and be active in the current game space here in the States, you got to be running a something that at least starts at $800, and now a lot of the new ones are now moving with big screens and whatnot are moving into the $1,200 range and stuff. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like, I hate to say it, but you guys in the States, you're getting ripped on your phones, dude.
Oh well, yeah, we've known that for a while.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's no surprise.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one thing that the states did very poorly was that they launched the infrastructure of our cell phones and everything like that, and they completely privatized it, unlike we did landlines and whatnot. So when we did that, it just became the buyer's market or seller's market, and they just control the price. And now, if you moved into the land, we may see this move, years in the future now when everything like they did with the original telecoms, what they did with electricity and all that stuff like that, where they start throttling and controlling how the pricing schemes can work because they're considered a public utility. Once we move into that space, finally, we'll see our prices come down. But until then,
you'll see prices come down, and you'll see market penetration, because that's the other thing. Over here, everyone has cell phones because there are cell phone towers everywhere, or they're spread out enough to where I can reasonably get a signal just about anywhere. Whereas in the States, I mean, you drive through large swaths of the U.S. and good luck getting a signal.
yeah, I live up in Minnesota now, and sure, if I'm in a major town, but as soon as I pull out into, like, I go travel to one of my friends' places who's like a half hour away, I gotta go. Half that trip is dead air, until I get to his town, and then I'm getting one bar.
Yeah, I mean, pray to all of the gods that your Google Maps doesn't decide to crap out, because you're kind of operating on a prayer at that point. Yeah, no, I've been in that situation. I've driven across the country a couple times, trying to get the job here all
well,
situated.
and one thing a lot of people don't understand is, like, the United States is flipping humongous. And not to say, like, listen, do I believe we should have coast to coast, every inch covered by cell tower?
Yes,
absolutely. But the reality is, like, man, there's a lot of space. And what do you get off of a cell tower? You got 30 miles, right, off of a tower radius, I think, if that on some. I don't even know what LTE is. I think LTE is maybe 15. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
it's rough. It really is. But no, I think you're right, Malice, in saying that, like, listen, it's not a utility, and it's not viewed as a utility until it is. It's not going to be everywhere. It's going to be where paying customers are.
It's the same problem with, like, getting cable internet.
Sure.
When you're kind of worried about, when that hinges on the good graces of Comcast or whoever the fuck's
everyone freaked out with the whole Agit Pi and net neutrality. Turning that down, there was a reason. It's like, listen.
Yeah. Oh, and now
we want this to be. People want this to be what? I mean, people want this to be a utility. They want internet service to be a utility, like phone service and like electricity. And it's
because
a lot
of
people that want
you can't get a job without the internet these days.
I could not function without it. If the internet was shut off, it's like I wouldn't know what to do.
If I didn't have a cell phone, like my current job, I basically use it 8 hours a day.
I would trade electricity for internet. I would become self-sufficient on electricity if I had internet. I'll go buy solar panels and batteries. I'll do what I got to do, but don't take my internet. Like that. That's how bad it truly is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I want to shift, like, go back to something we were talking about earlier. You just touched on, and it's cosmetics in games. And from your standpoint, speaking as a developer, how do you feel? Where's the balance between in classic titles? How we would look at the player that had, and I'll use World of Warcraft as an example, like these awesome skins that came out of, like, raiding, and there might be 10 people on a server that have these skins. How do you feel about locking those behind earned, like, achievement progression versus putting some of your dev's best work in like a cash shop or a cosmetic shop? Where do you think the balance is in that?
From talking to some artists who see that, oh man, I made this really cool thing, but 5 people are going to get it because, let's face it, it was locked behind this super really difficult raid.
Yeah.
And then you had a 1% chance.
Drop at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the percentages, and I've seen some of them be sad about it. but there is, in my personal opinion, that's a decision you gotta the designer and everyone has to make. Then that, okay, these skins are earned. These skins are on the shop. You don't mix those up, because the last thing you want to do is give the players a gigantic middle finger and say, "Oh yeah, that thing that you and your friends spent 80 hours on trying to figure out how to kill this boss, and then you killed it enough times to get this thing. Yeah, we're gonna sell it for $5."
Though Arcade did a kind of interesting way. Now they didn't, of course, hide it behind in-game content, but they did it as their duality of their cash app, which is that they put out these things called loyalty coins. Every time you log in, you get them, all this other stuff. So they'll put up a costume, and it's black. Well, then they'll put out a white version of that costume that is through the loyalty shop, or vice versa. So there's it's the same costume, but there is something different about
it. Yeah, you can tell who earned it and who bought it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's the key.
Time. I got
that
you.
makes them. Yeah, that is two different items.
Right.
And at that point, you're not crossing the streams.
I guess
that's where I think that's the best rationale, in a way, of, okay, we're going to put out this really cool, hard to get item. Well, you could make it available on your shop for $5, but you trim some of the flare off of it, shift its color or something like that, so everybody knows you bought it, and that dude over there, yeah, he's wearing the real one. Like,
yeah.
No, that's
I'm all about that. Being able to let players kind of choose how they. One of the biggest things, one of the biggest draws about MMOs in general is that you get to own your content. You get to, you're making your character look the way it is. You're playing the character the way you want to play it, and the more customizability, the better.
I've read some of those. They say I don't own none of that.
Yeah. So I am all about trying to get as many cosmetic things in there as possible, and honestly, I think I'm totally going to steal that idea, because I played Arcade when I first came out, because I worked at Tryon. So of course I played some Arcade, but I kind of fell out, and I hadn't touched it for a while. I did not remember that they did that, so I'm stealing that.
Yeah, totally. I think it was a really good idea. So, like we said before, no matter how bad a game is, there's always a gem in it.
Yeah, I wanted Arcade to be good too, because they took a lot of UO-esque things, but then I don't know how much of this I can talk about, but there were issues between Tryon and XL Games, the people that made it. And I feel like between the combination there, especially for a while, there were some decisions made that made it. There were some rules that were set up for that worked fantastic for the Eastern market. Again, that whole globalization thing, good for Eastern, horrible for Western, or vice versa. And they're just two completely different play styles. And sometimes it's cool, and sometimes it's fucking maddening. I hate grinding. People over here love grinding.
It's a great point, because it's something we, as we look at Arcade Unchained, which is something, a lot of us as guild leaders are looking into going into. We see Gamingo basically, say, hey, we're talking with XL Games, and it's like, what does that mean to us as far as trying to get a promise of something that we think is potentially game breaking? Well, but yeah, that's the reality. It's like, man, it feels like an empty promise. And at this day and age, with that whole developer-publisher relationship, it's like, until we see it, like, you just can't believe it.
Burn me once, shame on me. Burn me 6,482 times. Still shame on me.
What do you mean? It's not pay to win? Okay.
You wonder why developers don't like actually giving things in absolutes. It's because of shit like that. Like,
right.
That's why you're not seeing me talk more about Warhammer Odyssey right now, because our marketing team doesn't want me shooting off at the mouth and doing stupid shit like, everyone remembers As Designed.
Yeah.
And and I know better than that. But, that's why they want to more carefully control the message, because they don't want to talk themselves into a corner.
Oh yeah.
Game development. I mean, things always change. Some stuff that I thought was going to be 100% 2 weeks ago, I'm kind of having to ninja around and tweak around some stuff today. That's the nature of any development for any kind of software ever.
So how many cities were there supposed to be in Warhammer?
Oh God, I know, right?
Hi, Mark, if you're watching.
I know, right? Hey, Mark, I'm in Thailand. Come and try and beat me now.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, there are a lot of hard learned lessons from a lot of that. I'm glad they all made the mistakes so I don't have to.
Well, I've yelled at so many devs for so long about the fact, and you'll get this in every game. They're like, all right, we're going to have a 2-hour downtime. We're going to be doing it. No, tell them 3 hours. If you think you can do it in 2, tell them 3, because when you come up in 2.5, you're ahead of schedule, as opposed to, fuck, this week again, we're a half hour late. Stop biting into that. Tell people 4 hours and show up early.
You got people rushing home, changing their life schedules because they want to play your product.
You're talking to addicts. You have to remember you're communicating
Come
to
on,
an addict.
man. Come on.
Give me my fix. Give me my fix. 2 hours, I'm in. When you get that, you have to accept that. You need a better window, otherwise you make more mad gamers, and we know how mad gamers get.
Yes.
So one
that's why I've always been like, we're going down for maintenance. It's going to take as long as it fucking takes.
Yeah, exactly.
So shut the hell up, and you should be playing on patch day anyway. You should know better than this, players. Really.
And that's
why I'm not the community.
That's why not the community.
It would just be a string of profanity and saying up in a bit, fuck off.
I'd literally pop in the chat. You're an idiot.
I think some communities this day and age might appreciate that honesty. Oh, we may have lost him. We seem to be
we hear voice. He's
okay.
He's having problems with his image, though.
Yeah. Thailand internet.
And now you know why they all use phones.
Everyone's waking up and logging in, guys. It's burning up that connection.
Yeah.
Know, right? Yeah, everyone's waking up at 6:50 now. So
focusing on the things that we've already talked about, the flaws of the MMO space in many ways, through funding and through decision-making processes that somehow every company does not learn from the previous ones. Where do you see the future of the MMO space, though? Do you there's been such a lull in the North American space, and the Korean space has really not resonated that strongly with America. A lot of Americans are playing them because there's nothing else, but it feels like there's a death knell song, and people are wondering what people's visions are on that are actually in the industry on where that's going.
That's an attractive question. Let's talk about anything else. No, I think it's a real problem. The short answer is MMOs take a lot of money to develop. It was easier back when WoW was still kind of new and everyone was trying to chase that WoW money. So the development money came in a lot more. The
VCs were throwing cash.
Exactly, yeah. Those purse strings, they just got rid of the strings. They just started shaking the money bag and making it rain. And we got some good stuff. We got a lot of crap stuff. But the MMO market itself has not really expanded too much. You have people that play WoW, but they're playing WoW because it's WoW. It's a Warcraft game, and they're playing that. They are not necessarily MMO players in the sense that you and I are MMO players. The MMO market is not as big as people think it is. And people who are developing them need to keep that in mind. Either they need to design for their market, which the North American market, if you get 100,000 players, that's pretty fucking solid.
Right.
Or you need to start thinking globally, which means you're designing for two different opposing viewpoints for how an MMO is supposed to be. There are some things out there that look kind of promising, but if you've noticed, all those MMOs are they're not going the living world route. They're going the focused gameplay. They're focusing on a particular thing. Ashes of Creation seems to be focusing more on PvP and land ownership. You have
Unchained.
Unchained is focusing on PvP. You've got Legends of Aria, which is focused on more of a living world, old school thing. But if you also notice, they're shaving off money by going with the 2.5D route, where not ultra detailed or anything like that.
Right.
Ashes of Creation is largely being funded. I mean, it's being kickstarted. It was kickstarted. It made its money some money that way. But the CEO of the company is also the dude's fucking loaded, and he's throwing his cash right into it.
He ran a guild on my server in Arcade. So.
Yeah. Dude's got money, so he can afford to go and make the game that he wants. Trying to get investors for something like that is a lot harder to do these days because people have realized that in their mind, the market's dried up. But in reality, there's only so much market there to begin with. And we're getting towards a time where, I think just about anything that came out would be good.
Right.
But it's all about trying to get the money to where you can fund the development for that. And I mean, I understand why people are super interested. I've seen some flailings of people that are trying to fill that market, which is why trolling through Kickstarter and looking for people who say, me and my best friend are going to make an MMO. We only need, $25,000. We're going to make this VR MMO that's going to do everything forever. And I'm like, dude, that's so precious. I want to pinch your cheek.
It's like, Star Wars: The Old Republic was, in the hundreds of millions category. Like,
well, to be fair, a fair chunk of that was the fact that they had fully voiced everything forever. By the way, everyone, if you're listening, VO is a lot more expensive than you think it is.
Oh, yeah. And
you damn well better make sure that they get it right the first time, because if they have to come back in because you fucked up a line when you wrote it, everyone will be mad at you.
Yep. I can imagine.
Potentially.
Theoretically. We have no examples of this, though.
I've heard from
Oh, that's great.
All right. You got another question for me? We're starting to get close on time here.
Yeah. So if there was one single feature from every game you've played through all your experiences, and you were to make the perfect MMO, not talking about current projects, not talking about past projects, but if you got to make the perfect MMO, you were like, what would make the perfect greatness? What is one feature or aspect that just is a must-have in a game to be your perfect MMO?
I've played too many MMOs, so you have to give me a minute. I mean, I've always leaned more towards the living world style. I started working on Ultima Online. My first MMO was a little Korean game called Dark Ages.
Yep.
Believe it or not, it was like this little tiny ass thing that was super cool because it used they had a political system in there to where the actual players could go and vote on having representatives, and those representatives could actually go and change the world in various ways.
Class. You had to convince another player of a class to teach you your class. Yep.
Yes. And shit like that was fucking amazing. Like being able to getting players to interact with each other is something that is kind of woefully you can't find that these days because the nature of MMOs has kind of changed fundamentally.
the World of Warcraft model, the SWTOR model, all of that stuff is solo to max level, then figure out how to get to some groups so that you can go do raids. Other than that, there's no reason to socialize.
Yeah, they're selling you a single player, like a mediocre single player experience that you potentially can also experience with your friends.
Yeah,
right.
Which I don't think anyone appreciates anymore.
It's easier to develop for. It means
Sure.
you don't have to worry quite as much about stuff, and that's something that in my design for make sure my bosses aren't listening. We're kind of going. Some of our design is going to be to where you can solo if you want, but we also want you to be able to group, and we're trying to make sure that we can cover both play styles in the world. Because I mean, playing with friends is fun. Playing with, working with others is fun. I think that's something that we just need as a society, is to remind people that the other people are indeed people, and by default, everyone is good. By default, everyone should at least try to get along with each other and be able to being able to stress that when people work together, awesome things happen. And being able to kind of reach down and pull someone up is just it's good for the soul. And if you can find a way to harness stuff like that, it's good for your game.
Yep. So there's a title that we've talked about on our Smart Gamer Live show, Karls Illyria. This is actually it kind of drew me in because of Dark Ages. It is a game that is starting off with there's kings, dukes, and people that run beers, and like all the way down. And there's this whole entire rank and file system that is all run by players. I'm really excited to see if it comes to fruition, if the game actually ever exists. We know how that goes. But that concept of, at that point, forced interaction with players. You have to have that relationship. You have to go, okay, I'll swear fealty if you just don't shoot me in the face anymore. All right, cool.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was saying,
I think it's important. I mean, the game has to be accessible for someone alone, because ultimately, I think you want your game to be a portal to meeting other people. You've got to draw a player that's not coming in with a friend group. Like, you've got to draw them into your title. Like, hey, come check this out by yourself. But you also have to be a place. Once you've got them hooked playing the game by themselves. You got to be like, now I'm going to blow your mind. Let me show you what it's like to work with other people and what you can accomplish together. I mean, right. I think ultimately that's been the core of MMOs since forever. I mean, that's what initially drew me in, and I'm sure all of you guys too,
Yeah. I feel that one of the core flaws that I've run into personally from the industry, you may agree or disagree, but the idea that like a game like Dark Age of Camelot had what I call organic grouping. Here's a dungeon. You can walk into the entrance. You can start pulling mobs. Someone else will show up. They'll start pulling mobs. A couple more people, and now you're running out of mobs just solo. So now you're like, hey, let's group up. Let's go down, go to the next room, a couple of rooms down. Cool. Oh, yeah, my buddy Cleric just logged on. Let me get him in here. Okay, now we can go deeper and deeper and deeper into this content. And that organic flavor is what built communities. When I play WoW, I have no reason to interact with people except to yell at them for being bad at the instance dungeon I queued up for. To me, like, fails at building communities. Well, and I feel communities are the heart of what makes an MMO space the MMO space, right?
Yeah, it kind of falls into that. We as especially Western gamers have fallen into that time is money thing. To where any particular moment where we're not when we're in a game and we are not actively murdering stuff is time that could be spent doing other things.
Right.
And that kind of kills that community aspect of sitting around and just bullshitting. Because God, I used to do a hell of a lot of that in Star Wars Galaxies and in Dark Age of Camelot, in all those early MMOs. It was cool to just sit back and chill and like just
do
Just
nothing
type
for a night except type at each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun as hell. And games do not push that mechanically because, I mean, you can't really. Um, and people are just, hey, I've got 20 minutes. I need to get XXP so that I feel like I have spent my time wisely.
Yeah.
And people have forgotten about the journey as opposed to the destination.
I feel that there is space in the industry for both of those. We have games like Division and Destiny and games like that that are the crunchy, where four people are pseudo MMOs, where it's like, okay, we can do a group of 3 or 4 people, we can run a mission, done, move on, log out, go on with my day, and not feel like you're entrenched in some deep storyline, or that you need to build this community. Those games are great, but I also would love to see those community building games exist, in concert with that, next to them, instead of trying to be everything. That's a problem that I ran into with like Dark Age of Camelot when Trials of Atlantis came out. It was trying to be EverQuest. Stop being EverQuest. Be what you're good at, and focus on that. And games time and time again do that. They're like, well, there's money to be had over there, so let's try to draw them in, and then they just collapse into themselves because you can't do that. You have to get your niche and go with what you want, what you should focus on. That's why I actually appreciate the direction Camelot Unchained's going, because here's our niche. We're just going to focus on this and do it really well. And
really do it
and
very
I've heard
well.
really good things about it. And I mean, I look forward to what Mark Jacobs is going to be doing. If he ever actually listens, hey, dude, please give me a copy.
Yep.
I will play test it from Thailand.
You heard it here, Marky Mark. Matt needs a copy bed.
Yep. All right. Any final words? Anything you'd like to tell our viewers?
Be excellent to each other. Eat your vegetables. Remember that fire beats wood. And let's do this.
Do you have, if you're able to speak, do you have a time we should be looking out for your MMO that you're in development with?
Oh, I think that your best bet would be to go check out our Discord. I'm sure if you do some quick Googling, you'll find it. Or, if you guys would be super nice and get the link. Keep an eye out over there. We try and spill out tidbits whenever we can. Our marketing, the marketing dude is pretty good about doing stuff, and he keeps grabbing me and asking me for stuff. So I think I can safely say early next year.
Cool.
All right.
But keep an eye out for that. And if community lets go of my shackles and lets me talk about stuff, I'm sure I'll be here again.
All right.
Awesome. That'll be great. And Puka, I believe you have a question about coffee.
Yeah. As always, Matt, we want to know how you take your coffee. Are you a coffee drinker? What's your favorite? How do you take it?
Dude, typically, these days, I drink whatever the hell I can get. They sell like these, here we go. They sell like little tiny-ass things of coffee here that's like about this size.
Okay, like an espresso can?
Yeah, like a little espresso cans, but they have like a whole variety that goes from black to espresso. I'll admit that because I'm in Thailand, I have been indulging in Thai tea like a motherfucker. And they have like little kiosks where they have like this big old thing of like, of just tea, and they just kind of sit there and they brew it and they pour it in there and they just make it right there. And it's like, it's 20 baht, which is, like 75 cents for a decent sized thing of tea. And drinking that has not made me shit myself. So it's been pretty good.
All right. All right. Well, Matt, thank you for your time. It's been awesome chatting with you, and we hope to have you back.
Definitely.
Yeah, hope to have you back here soon sometime.
When you can give us more information on your project.
That's right.
Yeah. And when you can wake my ass up at Dark 30 over here.
All right. Well, we'll see everyone later.
I actually have a special show for you, just to so we can meet at a better time.
All right. Well,
all right,
thank
man.
you, and you have a good morning. And everyone else, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.